Surveillance cameras, helpful or an invasion of privacy? Mr. I Spy walked out of his door at 8:37 in the morning. He took a left at the end of his stairs and walked to the corner and bought a Wall Street Journal and a cup of coffee with 2 creams and 4 sugars. He then proceeded to walk across the street down the block to the ATM at the corner of Canal and Madison Street, and he withdrew $80 and placed the money in and the ATM card into his wallet. Mr. I Spy then took a left at the corner and walked 3 more blocks to his place of employment. He used the right door to walk in. Once inside, he stepped off to the right and knelt down to tie his left shoe. Once finished tying his shoe, he gets onto the elevator. He is accompanied by 4 other people. No one talks. He then gets off at the 8th floor and walks to his office. He sits down at his desk at 8:54. All of these actions were watched by surveillance cameras. Now, some would say that this is ridiculous to be watched and every move be recorded. However, what would you say if Mr. I Spy was robbed, kidnapped, or even shot? What if Mr. I Spy was you? On September 11, 2001, the United States encountered a horrific event that put the entire nation on high alert for terrorism. It was at that time that an increased desire to have video surveillance came about. Granted, there were surveillance cameras already in place at convenience stores as well as other places, however, not as many as there are today. In July 2011, when riots broke out in London, police quickly accessed the video surveillance to apprehend the individuals who were involved. And in New York City, when a little boy went missing, video cameras were used to track his last movements. And on April 15, 2011, in Boston, a camera placed at the top of a store across the street captured the footage of the backpack being placed that held the bomb that killed 3 people and injured more than 260. I am going to introduce to you the value and importance of surveillance cameras by showing how using these cameras help decrease theft, decrease crime, as well as increase the credibility of someone's innocence or guilt. According to Prevention One Security Solutions 2015, businesses are 5 times more likely to be broken into if they do not have their surveillance cameras. By placing these cameras strategically throughout the place of business, owners are able to capture thieves and keep costs down because individuals are less likely to shoplift items. I will tell you, however, there are some studies that show that theft has actually gone up with the use of surveillance cameras, but I believe that has more to do with them actually catching the thieves versus not knowing they were stealing in the first place. The National Association for Shoplifting Prevention 2014 estimates that over $13 billion worth of goods are shoplifted from retail stores each year. This amount equates to $35 million in losses per day. If that doesn't make shoppers want those cameras there, I don't know what would. If businesses are losing that much money, can you imagine the markup on the items honest buyers are having to pay to cover the losses the business owner, has to make up? Next, we have crime. Crime is another area where surveillance cameras come in handy. An article written by the Homeland Security Newswire in September 2011 states, if surveillance cameras are properly placed, there is in fact a noted decrease in crime. This study was performed in 3 of the larger cities in the United States, Chicago, Washington, D.C., as well as Baltimore. Another study done by the Urban Institute examined these same cities and got the same results. Crime was decreased and crime displacement was not noted. I have to admit, there are also studies with this that show that crime does increase as well with the use of surveillance cameras, but again, don't you think that has something to do with the fact that the crimes are actually being reported because they're being seen? It's just a thought. Now, how about the traffic light cameras? With the surveillance cameras, there's less of a traffic hazard because you're not pulled over for running the red light. Therefore, there are not 2 cars parked on the side of the road, and there's no flashing lights to distract other drivers, and there's less embarrassment of everyone looking at you while Officer Friendly is writing you that ticket. There are some theories that talk about a moth to the flame phenomenon, which according to is the moth effect real, published in 2013. It is a phenomenon where as people are driving, they're looking at the target that they want to avoid, being like the flashing lights. And in fact, instead of veering away, they are steering into the target without realizing it. Another beneficial aspect to the traffic light camera is, say there was an accident because someone ran a red light. It would be very easy to prove that you were not at fault. Lastly, remember the Boston Marathon bombing that I talked about in the very beginning of the speech. Let's talk about the surveillance footage. Shortly after the incident, police began to gather the surveillance footage from nearby cameras. Granted, it took some time to sift through all of the footage in order to piece together what had actually happened, but without the video, the individuals who planted the bombs could possibly still be walking around instead of having had their trial. As a matter of fact, it took only 3 days for the initial shots of the bomber to actually be released to the media to help identify the people. And on an NBC broadcast in April 2013, they stated that prosecutors were using their surveillance video from the department store across the street in the court proceedings to show the actions of the individuals responsible for the travesty. CNN published in 2013 a story called After Boston, the Pros and Cons of Surveillance Camera. In this story, they explain how facial recognition software is available to pick out individuals in a crowd. As a matter of fact, according to the Responsive Community 2002 and 2001 at that Super Bowl, the police used the technology to capture the bad guys. Now, this may sound a little creepy, someone watching you all the time, but honestly, if you're not doing anything wrong, what are you afraid of? In conclusion, the benefits of having surveillance cameras far outweigh the risk of not having them. The importance of having cameras placed where they are noticed is important. It is also important that people understand that they are being watched, however, not in the manner of being stalked. These cameras are there to protect us, to help reduce crime, and aid us in prosecuting those who deserve to be punished and not those who are innocent. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution protects individuals' privacy in private places. For example, it will protect someone who is in their own home who may be participating in an illegal act from being prosecuted. However, if that same individual knew they were being videotaped, that right there would not exist, according to Cornell University. Basically, surveillance cameras don't unveil anything that other people in general or a police officer wouldn't see out in public.